Hello everyone, hello sir. We are from group 5. Now we are going to present our article about code switching and code mixing in internet chatting between yes, yeah, and see a case study by Monica Stella Cardenas Claros, the University of Melbourne, and Neni Isharyanti Satya Wacana Christine, University Salatiga, Indonesia. But before we start, I will introduce my group member first. My name is Rizky Milani, and my group members are Deviski Valentika, Ventarianelli, and Cecilia Meli. For the next slide, will be presented by Cecilia Meli.
This is the table of contents of our presentations. So the first there is introductions, the second there is situating the study which consists of code alternations, code switching, code mixing, and research on code switching and code mixing in computer mediated environments. The third there is method, the fourth there is result, the five there is discussions, and the last there is conclusions and avenues for research. The next slide, introductions. So developing communicative competence in two or more languages gives individuals opportunities to express their feelings, their thoughts, and it can shape their identity. And it also helps them satisfy of their individual and social needs in the different contexts of the languages used. This study also have a goal to check the occurrences in the code switching and code mixing produced during the interactions in chat room by advanced users of English from Spanish and Indonesian backgrounds. And this paper present the results into sessions. The first session will be the identifies the key topics that trigger code switching and code mixing more frequently, and the second session compares the topics based on the cultural traits and classifies of code mixing occurrences under the headings of the alternations, insertion, and congruent lexicalization. And this part is about the situating the study. The first there is code alternation. So in the study of code alternations, the difference between code mixing and code switching is the most confusing topic. And according to Wei in 1998, notes that if code alternations occurs at or above clause level, it is considered as code switching, but if it occurs below clause level, then it is considered as code mixing. And these are the definitions that we are adopt for the current study. And the second, there is code switching. An intersentential code alternations or code switching occurs when a bilingual speaker uses more than one language in a single utterance above the clause level to appropriately convey his or her intent. And there is three factors that must be reckoned by Fishers. The first, there is relationships between speakers. The second, there is the setting where the talks were held. And the last, there is the subject under the discussion. And the next part, the code mixing, will be presented by Rizky Milani.
So next, this is for the example of code switching. Code switching or interstitial code alternation occurs when a bilingual speaker uses more than one language in a single utterance above the clause level to appropriately convey his or her intents. This is the example of code switching English Spanish. For the example 1, illustrate an instance of code switching. The picture looks so cool. Which picture? The one you have in your messenger. Ah, sí, me gustó mucho. Ah, yes, I like it a lot. So for the example 1, show how participants B interact in English during most of the conversation and suddenly switch into Spanish. And this is the example of code missing. Code missing, also called intrasentence code switching or intrasential code alternation, occurs when speakers use two or more languages below clause level with one social situation. Code missing. This is the three types of code missings. For the first one is insertion. This is the example of insertion in Indonesian English and Spanish English. For the example 2, 2E occurs when a Spanish-speaking participant discusses a paper for one of his classes. This is because of the same professional background between the researchers and the participant's specific language. That was the reason that prompted him to unconsciously insert English lexical items into Spanish conversation. So this is the example. Pero puna croe kue pasta con kue incluye la pregunta, the enhanced output más todas las temas. Well, I think it is enough if I just include the question of enhanced output. And for the example to be occurs when the participants talk about the factors that affect the price of a ticket of a live NBE camp. The example, tergantung tim, terus juga tergantung event. It depends on the team and on the event. And next, for the alternation, this is the example of alternation, English Indonesian and English Spanish. So for the example 3E, occurs when the researchers price the picture of the news cycle of the participant. And in this example, the participant used English in first part of the sentence, but when it comes to finding a sentence to translate pretty girl, he switched code into Spanish. So this is the example. I just had it in my room like a Nina Bonita como debe ser. I just have it in my room like a girl pretty as it's so pretty. And then for the sample 3B, occurs when the Indonesian participants talks about a paper, about sentence choice that he needs to submit. He uses the expression I mean to introduce the rest of his utterance in his first language. So this is the example. I mean ganti ke kalimat lain atau or I mean change it to another sentence. And then for the next one, congruent lexicalization. This is the example of Indonesian English. So for the example for E, occur when the participant describe the way he uses his cell phone to connect to the internet. So this example, gue connect pakai cell phone gue, or I connected using my cell phone. And then for the next example, for B, the participant stage that the software that he usually uses to convert his music file has expired. Software gue buat convert file WFV jadi MP3 gue udah expired. Or my software for converting WFV files to MP3 has expired.
Okay, the next topic is about research on code switching and code mixing in computer-mediated environments. For the first point, according to Warskauer, L. Said and Zohri in 2002, English was more frequently used both when searching the internet and informal or business-related email communications. In the selection of the code, the participants like it when they revealed very personal or private matters. The second point, according to the Goldberg in 2009, English was mostly associated with communication that dealt with professional and work-related issues. Most of the English language is related to communication with professional and work problems, or you can say that official things. For those whose first language is Spanish, that use language in their communication for things that are more related to closeness or related to important information and also about a group. The third point, according to Durham in 2003, language choice is in a Swiss mailing list by examining a corpus of 996 emails collected from 1999 to 2002. The use of English in email lists increased over time from 10% to 80% within 4 years. This happens because English is a language that is already known internationally. The use of more than one language can also confuse the participants, can make the participant confused in communicating. For the fourth point, from Wang in 2004, code choice and language used in the emails used for interpersonal communication written by 8 Chinese English bilinguals in Taiwan. Participants adopt two modes of communication, namely the Chinese monolingual mode, which is used to express personal feelings or thoughts. The second mode is monolingual English, which is used to show international identity, to show the internet, and to show the identity of the younger generation. For the last point is according to Ho in 2006, the bilingual practices of 21st tertiary students in Hong Kong when using ICT, an instant messaging computer programs. After doing a long analysis, it can be said that the English and Chinese languages complement each other to overcoming the pressure of the same problem at CMC. The use of English and Chinese is also a reflection of culture, even though English is mostly related to academic and technological matters. The word CMC above can be defined as communication that takes place through the use of computers used for personal purposes such as chat room or blogs. Next one is about method. There are 12 male participants, 6 were from Indonesian background and 6 were from a Latin American background. For the participants are advanced English speakers in a postgraduate program. The researcher examined 20 conversations in Indonesian and 20 conversations in Spanish to obtain the data. For the data analysis, for the analysis of code switching, occurrences of 3 variables were taken into account. The first, researchers initiated switching followed by the participant. And the second is researchers initiated switching not followed by the participant said the participant, and the third one, the participant initiated. Similarly, the occurrences of code mixing were counted and classified into the categories. There are insertion, alternation, congruent, lexicalization. Upon classification, the results were analyzed and compared to draw conclusions. For the next topic will be presented by Deliski.
Okay, so for the result of data analysis, although 20 conversations were analyzed for each language, the Spanish researcher participant chatting exchange resulted in longer interaction in terms of word count than those between the Indonesian-speaking researcher and her counterparts. So for the result is based on 5 questions. The first question is, what is the number of occurrences of both code switching and code mixing between linguistic backgrounds? The answer is, there are marked differences between the number of code switching and code mixing occurrences between linguistic backgrounds. In the 20 conversations analyzed for the Spanish-speaking participant, a total of 119 alterations took place, and 18 correspond to code switching and 35 to code mixing. The second question is, does researcher initiated code switching from participant to shift code? For Spanish speakers, 23 or 28% occurrences fit into the category of researcher-initiated code switching and 58 or 72% occurrences fit into the category of participant-initiated code switching. Of the 23 instances of researcher-initiated code switching, change of code was triggered 70 times or 78%. One time immediately after the researcher had switched from Spanish to English. The third question is, on what topics and function of the language the speaker seems to switch the most? Additionally, what topics are common and different regardless of culture? The answer is, in addition to confirming the top 3 topics and functions of the language that triggered the most code switching and code mixing occurrences are variables, have 11%, computer-related terms have 10%, academics have 9%, and sports have 6%, regardless of language background. And the fourth question is, what is the most frequent code mixing category in which participants mix languages? The answer is, regarding code mixing, both Indonesian and Spanish participants use more insertion than alternation or congruent lexicalization. In fact, the number of insertion occurrences is significantly higher than the two other types, 83% and 92% respectively. The next is discussion. The first is, Spanish speakers switch code 119 times, Indonesian switch code 174 times. This result is interesting considering that the number of exchanges of the Spanish-speaking participant is longer than the Indonesian ones. A closer look at the data indicates the most code alternation was triggered when participants used the function of the language confirming. This can be explained by the phonetic similarity between Indonesian and English. Yes, yeah, and ya if compared to yes and si in Spanish. The personalities and individual interests of the researchers can be considered as factors that may have influenced the result of the study. While the Indonesian researchers tend to be more inquisitive and ask many questions at once, the Spanish-speaking researchers tend to follow turn-taking conversation. The second is, interestingly, participant-initiated code switching is higher for Latin Americans, 72% compared to 36% for Indonesians. Most of the code switching was done from Spanish to English when academic topics were discussed. Most words used for saying goodbye such as bye, see you, and talk to you later. as well as computer-related terms such as email, PC, and attachment, have been borrowed from English by both languages and their use has spread rapidly. Evidence of this is that Spanish and Indonesian-speaking participants whose linguistic and cultural backgrounds are different use them indistinctly. So next we'll present it by Rizky Melani.
Next, for conclusion and opinion for research, this study aimed to add to the limited data available about the internet chatting practice of advanced users of English from Spanish-speaking and Indonesian-speaking backgrounds, in which Indonesian more often use code substitution or syntaxation than particularly from Spain. So this is the end of our presentation. Thank you and goodbye.